In this video, I'm going to show you how to work the provisional cast on. The provisional cast on is a cast on in which you will come back to the cast on later, and you'll take the stitches out, or take the cast on stitches out, and then you'll work those stitches in the other direction. So I use this cast on when I work pillows, because I like to come back after I'm done my pillow, and then I like to weave the stitches together. And if you use a provisional cast on, you will get live stitches, and you can just use the Kitchener stitch to weave the bottom of the pillow together. So normally when I do the provisional cast on, it has always been a little bit of a stress for me. But recently I just realized that the provisional cast on is very similar to the double chain cast on. And I use the double chain cast on in a lot of my patterns. So I'm going to show you how they're the same and how to work the provisional cast on with this method. So normally we're going to take a piece of scrap yarn when using the provisional cast on. We're going to start with a slip knot, like so. And then we're going to chain a few stitches. So we wouldn't do this with the provisional with the double chain cast on. But with the provisional cast on, we're going to chain a few stitches at the start. Doesn't matter how many, just a few. And then normally, if many provisional cast-ons, you would pick up this stitch and knit it with your working yarn. And that works. It can be a little bit cumbersome. So this method I prefer a lot better. Okay, so now we have our chain here, and we're ready to start our cast on. So taking your needle that you're going to use, and then placing your hook, crochet hook, in your working hand, we're going to take our yarn for the provisional cast on and put it underneath our needle. And then take your crochet hook, put it over top of our needle, and we're just going to grab this yarn from with our crochet hook, and we're going to pull it through this stitch on our crochet hook. And that is our first stitch. And then we're going to take our yarn here and put it between our hook and our needle, and place it underneath our needle. So now this is where it differs a little bit from the double chain cast on. The double chain cast on, my crochet hook goes underneath my needle. With the provisional cast on, it's going to go over top. So you're going to put your crochet hook over top of your needle, and then just take our yarn here, and we're going to use our crochet hook. We're going to grab it and slip it through this stitch. Then once again, we're just going to put this yarn between the needles and underneath our needle, and then grab it with our crochet hook and pull it through this stitch, like so. Do that a couple more times. So take our working yarn underneath, crochet hook over top, and then just grab it with our crochet hook, grab the yarn, and pull it through. Yarn between, crochet hook over, grab the yarn, pull it through. Yarn between, crochet hook over, grab our yarn, pull it through. And that is how we do this provisional cast on. So it's very similar to the double chain cast on. That's why I love it so much. I'll just do one more here to show you. And now I have as many stitches as I need. I'm just going to chain a few more stitches here, like so. And then I'll just pull my yarn through this loop. And then what I like to do is I like to put a knot on this side of my provisional cast on to tell me that this is the side that I need to start pulling back my provisional cast on when I'm ready. Okay, so there's my provisional cast on. So now, if you look at it, we have the working yarn on our needle. So this would be our, this is just our extra yarn that we're going to use for the provisional cast on. So it is on this needle. So we need to get our actual working yarn on this needle. So the first step you're going to do is you are going to knit across these stitches with your working yarn. So I have this tan yarn that I'm going to use. So what I need to do is just knit across this first stitch, this first row, sorry. We're going to knit across. And then I'll just do a few more rows and then I will show you how to take the provisional cast on off. So I just knit a few rows in garter stitch just to show you how this works. So now if I'm ready to come back to my live stitches, I'm going to go to the side where I have my slip knot and I'm going to pull out this yarn from this last stitch here in my chain. So pull out this yarn and then it's a long piece of yarn here, and then I'm just going to unchain my provisional cast on like so. It should just pull out nicely. And when you get to your live stitches, there's my first stitch here, and then my second stitch and third stitch, and so on. So what you'll do is then you will pick up these stitches and work whatever your pattern says to do with them. So one thing to note when you are working the provisional cast on, your first row should be a knit row, just because the stitches that are on your needle after this method of provisional cast on are from your scrap piece of yarn and are not from your yarn you're going to use when you're knitting your garment. So if your pattern requires that you or specifies to use the chain provisional cast on where you pick up stitches from the chain, then you will need to knit the first row before you start the pattern. So I hope that helps, and like I said, it's very similar to the double chain cast on, and because the double chain cast on is my favorite cast on, the provisional cast on has now become quite a bit easier. Good luck.